Okay, grade sevens, welcome back, and we are taking a look at how to construct an assertion paragraph. In the original assignment, it is a 5-paragraph essay. This would be the second, third, and fourth paragraph. I'm not saying that each paragraph would be identical, but they are identical in format, not necessarily in content. This is the layout of each paragraph, so you have things in the right order, that they make sense, and so on. And how that works is you have this acronym called taxes and you follow it in that order and put your information in that order. And what ends up happening is you have a cohesive paragraph that makes sense. So what I've done here, and you can see along the side if you've been reading these sort of highlighted in different colors sections here, is I've put together one assertion paragraph that is about the same topic that we were taking a look at before, which was capital punishment. What we have here is the section where it talks about it being an expensive process. Now, if you don't remember what I'm talking about, you'll need to go back to the previous lessons and take a look at that example there. But this is one of the assertions that author was making. Now, what I've done is I've taken their point apart and I've expanded on it. I did a little extra research and I've sort of made it a little more cohesive to make a lot of sense, because in the original one, it just kind of said, it's really expensive, and that was it. And it didn't really give a part of significance or why should we care or why does it matter. And this structure of this paragraph actually makes it more relevant. And so what you have here is this acronym called taxes. It breaks down each section, and each section kind of just starts with that heading. What we're taking a look at here to start with is the first sentence, and that is the topic sentence, which says putting a person to death is an expensive process. It's the same point the original author had made there. And what it is it's the topic sentence. Like it says, it restates the topic that will be in the paragraph. So it tells us what the paragraph is going to be about. In your introductory paragraph, which is not this paragraph, the introductory paragraph, where you had your thesis statement, that statement has 3 assertions in it. Now, before I continue here, I want to remind people a little bit of something. For this, if you cannot do 5 paragraphs, you find it too overwhelming, it's too much work, too much research and all that, just don't panic about it. I'd rather you create your introduction, your assertion paragraph, which is in this format here, and a conclusion paragraph, and that would be it. If you can do this once, you can do this 3 times, because basically the 3 assertion paragraphs are going to be identical in format. So if you follow this format once, I assume you can follow it 3 times. Now, if you want to do a full 5-paragraph essay, great. If you feel that you are not up to that, then don't panic. It's fine. Just do 1 assertion paragraph. Show me that you can follow this with with your introduction and also a conclusion paragraph. That being said, let's continue with this. In the second part of this, it says, it would be more beneficial to use the money that is used for executions for rehabilitations of prisoners instead. So basically it's like saying the money that you use for executing prisoners, you could use it to actually help them with therapy, things like that. Research conducted by experts at the University of Florida show a gap in between the cost of life sentence versus the cost of the death penalty. And so this is going to be the main assertion point that I'm going to be using for an expensive process. What this does, which is a little bit different than what the previous author that used this same kind of point did, was I'm actually giving it some sort of let me see here, the presentation of your idea around the topic. I'm just giving a little more cohesiveness, I think, by saying this, because basically their paragraph said that it was an expensive process and that it was expensive, and that's all. This paragraph actually takes it and goes, hey, there's better ways of using this money. So moving right along, though, you have this green section here, which is your evidence. It goes, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it cites a University of Florida professor who's like the chairman of the board kind of thing of that section of the university sociology department. And it states that he's an expert. It also goes on to it uses the same evidence that the other person had used. It comes from a document which I've cited down below, which the original author had not done, but I cited that document and took a little bit more information out of it. You can see the evidence that I'm using there is a quotation from that document that says in Florida it averages about $3.2 million for executing a person, but it costs $600,000 to keep a person in prison for life. And so that is my examples, facts, data, research, material, and real life example section. Like you would use one of those things. I used data and research data basically for that. And you can see it there in the end that it says Hunter in brackets. That's MLA format for citing your source. So I've cited my source because I didn't want to plagiarize. That information did not come from me. That information came from another document. Let's move along right here. So this part I think is crucially important, and it's something that's really missing from the previous example using the save evidence. It says, as one can see, there's a huge gap between the cost of executing a prisoner and the cost of giving the same person a life sentence. So if you look at the fact that I provided, that I researched and found, it says that it costs $3.2 million to execute someone. It costs $600,000 to keep them in prison for the rest of their life. So there's a huge gap in the cost of executing a prisoner and the cost of giving a person the death sentence, right? So you can see that $3.2 million and $600,000, huge things. What I'm doing is I'm explaining how the evidence in my example support my assertion. So that sounds confusing, but basically my assertion is it's really expensive. What I'm doing is I'm going back to my example and showing how that evidence in the example supports what I'm saying. So I'm saying it's expensive. That shows how expensive it is. As one can see, there's a huge gap in the cost. So I'm explaining it. What's next that sort of piggybacks off of this is this idea of significance. So if you take a look over the side here in a second, you're going to see what the impact of the evidence that I provided is. And that's the blue part down at the bottom where it says, while there's some debate over the effectiveness of rehabilitation programs, I kind of started that part of it with that, meaning I'm not debating whether rehabilitation programs work. I'm just saying there's a different way of allocating money to research programs. What it says here is may be used to explain the impact of the evidence and address potential counter arguments. So counter argument to what I had said above might be that the rehabilitation programs are not effective. I'm saying there might be some debate over whether rehabilitation programs are effective or not. I'm not arguing that. So I'm basically addressing up the counter argument that I see a person might have, and I did it basically in one sentence, half of a sentence really. It was the introduction to a sentence actually, because it says, while there are some debate over the effectiveness of rehabilitation programs, it seems evident that there's a large pool of money that could be invested to start some effective rehabilitation programs. And so basically I'm saying there's a huge gap between the $3.2 million and $600,000. And that money that's in that gap could be used to rehabilitate people if you started a rehabilitation program. Again, why does that need to be there? When you take a look at it and it's this significance section, this is what makes it important. If it doesn't matter, then, and I don't explain why it matters, then it's not going to be convincing. Okay. In the original one, they didn't spend very much time explaining this. In other words, they didn't explain why it's significant. So if I were reading this article and that wasn't included, I could go, yeah, so what? It costs a lot more money. Who cares? Right? But now I'm saying this is why you should care, because there's other ways of like servicing people with that kind of money. There's a huge gap there. That's why it's showing significance. If there's no significance, then it doesn't matter whatever you've written before. So make sure that you include a section on significance at the end. And then I've also basically gone back and done a works cited. Now this is MLA format. I'm going to have to show you MLA format when this is all over with and you've written it. But that being said, that's how you construct an assertion paragraph. You follow this format, do each section one at a time, see if, then read it all over, make sure everything makes sense to you, and you've got an assertion paragraph. It's a really nice format to follow. There isn't a lot of room for error here if you just follow the format the way that I've laid it out here. Start at the top though if it's overwhelming, and just work your way through each thing. Look at it and go, okay, first I gotta put my topic sentence. Put your topic sentence. Then I have to make an assertion about that. Put your assertion down. Put your example, the thing that you researched, the facts that you've got right here. Go back to your explanation, basically explaining how your evidence supports what you're saying here. Then explain why it's significant, and you've got yourself a wonderfully constructed assertion paragraph. That being said, that's everything I got for you this time around. If you want to contact me, ask me a few questions, you're more than welcome to do so, and I can hone in on a certain section if you need something like that, or if you need additional assistance with this. Okay, I will talk to you all later.